Hello YouTube and my students at Washington High School. I am here today to show you how to make a vase any size out of more than one piece. This is just one I have lying around the studio. I did it as a demonstration I think a year or two ago. It's a smaller vase, but I actually made it out of 4 pieces. So one piece was this bottom part right here, the second piece was about right to here, the third piece to there, and the fourth piece was the top. We're going to do that today a little bit larger. It's the same with any scale, but the goal is to be able to make some of these really nice, interesting turns and moves, which are usually pretty difficult in the shaping process, a little simpler by making it out of more than one piece. So today I've got 4 pieces of clay. I didn't really weigh them out, I just cut them off of a log and kind of pounded them into some blocks. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm guessing it's like about 8 pounds of clay maybe. So I'll start with actually the smallest part, the base, and we'll just get started. This is more clay than I need. I'll probably end up throwing 2 of each piece, or at least 2 of the top and 2 of the bottom. The reason I do that is because you never know which one's going to look good. It's kind of like a teapot. You always make at least 2 or 3 spouts and maybe even 2 or 3 lids, just to see if they are the right shape or the right kind for each teapot body. So I'm going to be doing that right now. The first thing I'll do is I'll center the clay. I'm not going to go over a lot of the details of centering and raising and all that kind of stuff. I'll mention a few things, but you should watch probably one of my other videos or a video from someone else on YouTube for that kind of a demonstration. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing the coning method of centering. I'm going to squeeze from push from my left hand and my right hand on opposite sides, maybe at like 6 and 1. It goes up a little bit. I bring it back down with my hand, it goes down a little bit. And the goal is to get the clay in the middle of the wheel. All right, so I'm gonna bring this up because I'm gonna throw off the hump. I'm gonna make a little base. So this little ball of clay is what I'll be working with here. It doesn't matter if it has a really thick bottom because I will be trimming it. So it's a really simple shape. I'm just going to open it up like a little bowl, and that's pretty much it. I do want this to be thick. It's going to be holding some weight, so I don't want this to be a really thin base. It should be almost the thickest part of the vase, so that's it. I have my wood knife here. A very simple shape. I'll be trimming it later. I'm going to bring it all the way down to about right there. I'm not measuring these. I'm going to make another one off the bottom. There we go. I'll make this one maybe a little taller than that one was, and then one of the 2 will hopefully look good with this bottle-shaped vase. All right, this one will be a little larger. Still leaving some room in the bottom. You can also make these have an interesting shape to them now. This one I'm making the bottom a little narrower, and I'm going to be straightening the side on the bottom so it has like a nice right angle at the very bottom. There we go. Water out of the inside. This is, instead of like trimming a foot, I'm actually throwing a foot, so I have like a really nice deep foot. I think it's really attractive looking at the bottom of a pot having a nice deep foot, but I'm throwing it so it doesn't require a whole lot of trimming or guesswork. So that's the first part, really simple, really fast. I'll be trimming them later. That's the bottom, and I made 2 of them. Here's another one. Okay. Next I'll be making the top of the vase. I'll make the top first, because the middle parts I'm going to have to measure. So I'm going to make these top parts first. So here's the larger piece of clay I have, and I'll make at least 2 top parts as well. There we go. We're on the wheel. Okay. My clay is a little stiff. I plugged this about 5 months ago, and it's been kind of sitting in a little bin. I don't mind stiff clay, but if your clay feels like it's too stiff and you can't quite get it centered, it's always good maybe to go look for some softer clay around the studio. Near the pug wheel, maybe pug some fresh clay for yourself and add a little bit more wet clay to it. Right. So I'm just removing that outside that was uneven. Okay. So I'm going to throw off the hump again for this part. This is going to be the top of the pot, or the stem, and I'm going to make this a few different ones. I'm going to make one that's taller like a bottle and one that's a little shorter. Here will be the shorter, kind of wider one. I'm going to go down. I'll probably work until right about there. I am just raising a cylinder. I do a lot of different hand techniques. If you're going to raise with 2 fingers on the side or a knuckle on the side, anything works. I kind of use a bunch of different hand positions. I'm just going to be raising this thing up, making it a little wider at its base, and then nice and wide at its top. Kind of a nice wide, just the top of a vase, kind of neck shape. I don't want this piece to be as thick as the other pieces. There we are. And I honestly have no idea what shape the middle is going to be yet. I'm just going to make 2 different shapes, and I know one of them will probably fit kind of close, only because I can make the middle about a size that I think will be proportional to the top. And I will be trimming this vase from almost all sides. I'll be able to trim it kind of to fit. So there's about my shape. I'm going to use my rib on the outside, just get a nice curve by pressing the rib in and kind of folding it over from the top. Doesn't matter what finger you use or how many fingers. I could also do the same thing from the inside, kind of like how you make a bowl. All right. And I've left the rim a little thicker because I kind of like a nice thick rim. I could angle this if I wanted, make it have like a nice angle to it, like a nice 45-degree angle, a little sharp. I kind of like that. I'm going to smooth out the edge a little bit. I don't want it too sharp. Okay. Now I'll get this one cut off and make another one that'll be a lot narrower and a lot taller. Very different shapes. So I've got a smaller foot, a wider foot, a wider top, and I'll be making a taller, narrower top. Here we go. All right. Here comes the second one. Okay. I do not need a bottom on this part because I will be trimming through it. I leave a very thin bottom. I think it gives me a little stability. I'll do a knuckle pull here for you. There we go. I'm using the slip from my hands to get water on there. You'll notice I don't throw with very much water. Use the traditional finger pull here. 2 on the outside. I think it's important to see a lot of different techniques for raising. I was taught only one way. You have to use your knuckle with a sponge on the side. This is how I was taught. I had another teacher who said you always use 2 fingers. I've seen people on YouTube or in diagrams in books showing different angles. I kind of use a little bit of everything. Experiment when you're throwing, because one of them is going to feel better, or 2 of them are going to feel like they really work for you, and stick with those maybe for a while. But just because I do it one way doesn't mean you have to. You know, there's principles. You know, you have your right hand on the outside, your left hand on the inside. If your wheel is going counterclockwise, and that's kind of a principle. I find turning my thumb upside down, I can get it narrower, faster, and holding it steady. Okay. I'm going to bring this out a little bit. There we are. Now I'm going to make this one even narrower in the center. It's kind of have a flare to it. And then maybe I'll let it stay kind of wide on top, like that. Almost like a little bowl on top of the stem. Maybe that will look good. Who knows? I like building things out of parts because if you have enough parts, you can really make some really neat, maybe interesting new shapes that you couldn't do or you wouldn't do if you were throwing a vase and you were kind of invested in the bottom half when you're working on the top half. So because I'm making all these parts, it's almost like I get to build with blocks. And I have so many parts, I can make, if I make enough parts, I can make more than one vase and use them all. But I might get 1 out of 3 or 4 vases that's really, really different and has really nice proportions, almost on accident. And then I can, you know, recreate that intentionally if I do like it. So there's kind of my neck shape. The last thing I'll do is kind of give this a little more curve. Very gently, I'm not really pushing from the inside, just from the outside. And I'm just kind of trying to give it a nice sweep. I can use my rib, it has a curve on it. I can take my metal rib and kind of sweep it in there as well. There we go. It's got a nice curve now. And I kind of notice this thing's kind of curving here a little bit, and I like that. Maybe I'll do another like second curve there and change it a little bit. There we go, I like that. Now I'm going to try to join those two shapes in a kind of a sharp point. There we go. So I'm just really using the curve of the rib. So there is my second foot. I'm going to leave a lot of that bottom. I don't know where I'm going to want it to attach. I might, you know, end up cutting it right there. I might keep it all the way down here, but I'm just going to take it off right there so I have room to decide later. Okay. Take this one off as well. Okay. All right, so here's kind of the meat of the project, which is going to be the bottom and the top. I'm going to use my larger of the 2 balls of clay, and I'm going to put it first. This is going to be the bottom part of the vase. It's going to be from here to about right there, part of this vase. All right. This is also not going to have a bottom, so I don't need to leave a lot of clay for the foot because I will be trimming through this one as well. So I can use the majority of this clay just to get height if I wanted to. The beauty of making a vase is that you don't have to make them super thin because you don't pick vases up. You kind of leave them sitting on a table. If it was a coffee cup or a bowl or even a plate, weight is a consideration. A pitcher, weight might be a consideration, but for a vase, it kind of sits on the table. You'd only move it into storage or move it onto a different surface. So I'm not worried about its thickness as much. And also I'm going to trim this thing quite a bit. So, all right, let's see. Now, I'm just going to put the hole in the center, raise it into kind of a generic cylinder, and then I'm going to look at the pieces I have and kind of guess how wide this bottom should be, or if it should be at a V or more of like a cup shape. Okay, so I've got my hole in the middle. When I'm working with a bigger piece of clay, I usually will take the side of my knuckle and pre-thin the top of the cylinder. It just sometimes makes raising a little easier. Pre-thin the top. There we are. I'll do a raise with a sponge. I'll try to get as many techniques as possible in there. I'll raise it with my fingers through the sponge. Sometimes my left thumb is supporting on the back side as well. All right. I am going to leave a good thickness at the top. I don't want to raise all the way through. This is where I'm going to be joining the pots right here. So it's really important that's nice and thick because I will be trimming that seam to blend. So I need to leave the top about a ½ an inch thick would be just about right. Right where I plan on the pots being connected. Okay, so I'm going to do one more last pull. I'm going to remove some of this clay at the bottom. My clay is, like I said, very stiff, so I don't want this clay to be knocking my hands around. Okay. There we are. And I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Perfect. So there's kind of my cylinder here. Thickening the top, making sure it's nice and straight. Now I get to shape. So at the bottom, I have kind of a narrow bottom. I'd say it's about 3 inches wide in the inside. It'll give me a chance to kind of trim it in a little bit. I will be kind of tucking this in so it gets a little to a finer point, because I do have some smaller feet. So now I've got it to where it's kind of pointed. There's a lot of clay at the bottom for stability. I'm going to take my rib and clean up some of my throwing lines real quick. And now from this shape, I could leave it here, and this is kind of a V shape. It just kind of V's in, and I could trim a lot off of this inside part. I think I'm going to make a vase that's a little rounder, though. I kind of want one that's got a little more body to it. So kind of like a bowl, I'm just going to bowl out the inside and give it kind of a nice round shape. And I'm really trying to make sure that the widest point is still going to be my connection. It's just easier to blend from there. There we go. This is also getting rid of some of the throwing lines on the inside, if someone could see on the inside of this vase when it's done. All right. Little bit of body. And it will change its shape a whole lot when I trim, because I am leaving this thick. Because I will actually be trimming from the very bottom to the very top, because this is actually the middle of a pot. So that's probably about right. I'd say it's about a 6-inch cylinder that's about 4 inches wide on top. I will wire or wood knife off this last little bit here. Okay. Give you an idea of the shape of it on the inside. Okay. Now here's the measurement. This is a really important part, because I have to make sure I measure this right. I have some calipers here with me. There's different kinds of calipers. There's ones that have one side just like this, or one side just like this on one side. It doesn't matter which ones you choose to use. They're really for making lids when they have two sides like this. I'm just going to measure. I'll use the other side. I like it better. I'm going to measure just the width of this piece right there. Make sure I keep my measurement. And that's what I'm going to throw a bowl with that diameter. So there's kind of my cup shape. Take it off the wheel. There we are. And on to the last piece, the bowl. This is probably too much clay. I won't probably use this whole thing. But I can always just cut some off the top. All right, here we are. Okay. Centering again. I think it's always best, if you have the time and you can do it, to throw all the pieces in one day. You start running into issues with drying when you make them in more than one day. But if you can't throw 4 pieces in one day, or in my case, I'm making 2 of each piece, so I think I'm making 6 pieces. If you can't make 6 in one day, that's okay. You just need to make sure you wrap things really, really well. Don't leave a board underneath or with the plastic if it's going to be over a weekend. A piece of wood will dry the clay out over time, sucking the moisture out of the base of the clay first, and then kind of pulling it from the inside of the bag. Okay, so this is going to be a bowl. Make sure the bottom is nice and centered. So this is going to be upside down. This is going to be the shoulder of my pot right here, and I'm throwing it upside down. So I do not need a bottom for this as well. So I will go all the way through, or close to all the way through, leaving a thin base, thinner than I would normally leave for a bowl. I will leave the bottom narrow like a bowl though, because I do want to be able to trim this into a dome. Okay, there we are. I'm going to raise it. Here's another raising technique. I'm pinching with my index finger and my thumb on one side, and my index finger and the side of my finger on the other side, doing like 2-finger squeeze and lift up. It's a quick way to raise the clay, just like this, and pinching the clay up together, and it kind of pre-thins the top. Okay, so this is going to be my bowl. I'm going to raise a little clay from the inside. It's going to have kind of a wider top. And once I get to about the width I think it is, I'm going to measure. And I'm about there. I kind of got lucky on that one. It's about the right size when I stretch it out to be straight. I want this side to be straight where the connection is, so if I just push this out to straight, I will be right at my measurement, maybe a little extra. I've got this top again, it's a little more than a 1/4 inch thick, getting close to a 1/2 inch. I'm going to just kind of stretch the inside out a little bit, make sure it's nice and even. I'm going to leave it nice and thick. I can always trim this from the outside and really trim this inside part. I want to leave myself space for that, because I'll be trimming each of these individually, and then as I attach them, I'll be trimming them again to make sure that they fit together. So leaving extra is a good thing. Okay, remove the outside. Really quick, thick bowl. Right, I'm going to make sure, it's really important that you don't have the bowl kind of curving in. If it's curving in and you attach it to that one, you're going to have to do a lot of trimming right here. You might get a thin spot. So try to get the widest part to be the opening of the bowl, or the lip of the bowl. And I can bring in the inside a little bit and just make sure I'm at the right width. Always double measure to make sure you're kind of at the right place. There we go. And there we have it. So I've thrown 6 pieces. 2 of them I won't really have a use for. If everything works out, I could use them, save them, wrap them in plastic and make another piece. Or I could just recycle them, the ones that I choose not to use. So here's the bowl part here. So that is the 6 pieces that I will use to attach to make a vase. If you check out my video on trimming, I won't be trimming the same vase. I made the trimming video first, so I'm trimming a vase very similar to one of these. And the trimming video made the exact same way, and then I attached it as well. So if you're in my class, you'd want to make sure you watch the throwing video, maybe for 1 or 2 of the shapes. And then what you'd want to do is pause the video, go ahead and perform that, setting your clay, throw the, the small dish part, maybe throw this part and throw this part one day. The next day, watch the video on how I threw this and measured it and threw this. Throw that the next day, wrap them in plastic really well. And then when you go to trim, watch that video, watch the trimming part of the video, and then after you watch the trimming part of the video, pause it and go ahead and trim yours. And then after you do that, you could look at the attachment part of the video, and then go ahead and pause the video and attach, and then there's the final trimming. So there are a few steps to this process. I would encourage you to not watch a video all the way through, but to pause, watch it on your phone, pause, do what I just did, kind of have me there with you, and then kind of break, wash your hand, maybe get a cup of tea if you're at home watching this, and then do the next part. Okay, so that is it. If you make 100 of these, you will start understanding the process. Thanks.